Hey everybody, it's Lisa aka Wolf and Storm coming at you with another live video review of Time Lord Victorious for Doctor Who. Now, I don't want to waste a lot of time with unnecessary talking because there's a lot of stuff to go through. So I'm gonna segue right quick into my usual channel stuff before we go into the review. First, if you want to help me keep on keeping on, hit me up on the social media links in the description. And don't forget, like, subscribe, smash that button, hit that bell, so you know when my videos are coming out. And if you want to be a Patreon and help me keep keeping on, you can get this content earlier before anybody else. Just a thought. Anyhow, right into it. Before I start with the review for Time Lord Victorious, just so you guys remember, this is not a spoiler-free channel. There is going to be visuals up here, so if you haven't had the chance to get the Doctor Who magazine or read Monstrous Beauty yet, I would suggest you hit that pause button. Go ahead and do that, and then come back. Unless you don't care about being spoiled. Aside from that, you know something. I think this channel is certainly starting to slowly shift and becoming not just a Doctor Who channel, but a David Tennant appreciation channel, mostly because David Tennant is doing so much work over the lockdown. It's freaking incredible. You've already seen I did my review for for Out of Time. I should do a review for Staged, but I mean, Staged is kind of staged, you know. We all know it's funny. But I am definitely going to be doing a review for his latest outing, Des. Oh my god. I know you're probably asking yourself, Wolf, you're not in the UK. How'd you get the chance to watch that? Well, let's just say I have my ways. But the point is, not only have I watched the 3-part Des mini-series, I have also watched the real Des, the Dennis Nielsen story documentary that came out on Thursday on IATV that was narrated by David Tennant himself. So we will be reviewing that, and holy wow. Not to glorify Dennis Nielsen at all, but David Tennant is absolutely freaking amazing in this role, as well as Daniel Mays and everybody that was involved. The whole thing was just absolutely spectacular. But we will be reviewing Des, and also a little bit of information about David's venture after Des. We've known since last year that David was signed to play Phineas Fogg, the main character in Around the World in 80 Days. And they had begun filming right like at the tail end of 2019, or well, yeah, sort of at the tail end of 2019. And they managed to get about an episode and a half in the can before filming was suspended because of stuff. Can't say the word on camera, but you know what I mean. Now, in the UK, they are slowly but surely dipping their toes back into the filming world. So filming for Around the World in 80 Days is scheduled to resume in October. So slowly but surely we should be having some more information about that as it comes. And I will be sure to give that to you, whatever I can get my hands on. And when Around the World in 80 Days finally does come out, we will definitely be having a review for that. I might even think about doing a watch party with some of the other Doctor Who fans or David Tennant fans, if I can find any. Anyhow, right into it. Time Lord Victorious. This month's issue of Doctor Who magazine came with a supplement. It's the individual comic book Monstrous Beauty. This is the 9th Doctor's beginning portion of his role in the Time Lord Victorious storyline. Again, if you want the total breakdown of the total Time Lord Victorious storyline, what is being issued when, make sure I will have to click the link that I will put in the description to that website that will give you the entire breakdown. It's on the Doctor Who TV website. It's the entire breakdown of what's being released when. Now, it doesn't have the details, but this issue of Doctor Who magazine has a huge multi-page article that details exactly how the stories fit together, which is, I think, is something we've been waiting on for a while. We've got all these individual pieces, but we didn't quite have a way to fit them together to figure out, how this was supposed to work. So while the 8th, 9th, and 10th Doctor stories are all coming out at different times, they essentially fit together, are supposed to fit together into one piece. And fortunately, in this issue of Doctor Who magazine, they somewhat are able to explain it in better terms so that fans can understand it. Because honestly, when they originally rolled this out, it was kind of confusing. We had books, audios, books on audio, live events, comic books, and all these things, but we didn't have a way to stick them together to figure out what exactly was going on. So I thought that the whole thing was supposed to be centered around whatever happened between the 10th and 13th Doctors when they were together dealing with the Weeping Angels and Autons in her comic book that caused some sort of paradox, which is how that was segued into, oh my God, he's dealing with Daleks who've never heard of a Time War. I figured that was how it was supposed to start. But I've come to realize that's only really just a small piece. It actually, from what I can tell, is supposed to have started with something that he does before that. No, after that. It's glaringly obvious that in the comic books, for him, this takes place during Series 3 when he's traveling with Martha Jones, obviously, Weeping Angels and all that. But the overarching paradoxical problem actually I don't think it has anything to do with what happened between 10 and 13. I think it has to do with what happened with Adelaide Brooke in Waters of Mars, and it has bled through that far back. Not just his adventures with Martha, but way beyond that, like going into the dark times. It has totally caused a time fracture. Even though Adelaide Brooke fixed the timeline by committing suicide, and if you haven't seen Waters of Mars, I'm sorry, but by now you should have, because that was like 11 years ago. When she committed suicide, she managed to set the timelines back to where they were supposed to be. But in this particular storyline, apparently, even though she did what she did, it didn't seem... It might have fixed that timeline, but it still somehow caused a time fracture. Before she... Okay, basically it was like this. He saved her when he wasn't supposed to. Her and her friends. When he wasn't supposed to, because her death was a fixed point on Mars. He brought her back to Earth. When she realized how catastrophic it could be for her to survive, she committed suicide so that time would continue the way it was supposed to, because it was a fixed point. But in the little bit of time where she was still alive, before she decided to do what she ultimately did, a time fracture occurred. Because what happened wasn't supposed to happen. And apparently that's where all these events are now coming from. So, let's start out with Doctor Who magazine, issue 556. As you can see, isn't that a thing of beauty? This issue actually has 3 distinct covers. It has the regular cover with Christopher Eccleston on it, and even though it's the regular cover, it's still fucking amazing. It's not often we get Christopher Eccleston on a cover of anything having to do with Doctor Who, so that in itself is pretty awesome. And of course, there's all the article things around him, but inside the magazine, they have done a mock-up of the same cover, but just him. It's a clean cover with no article details or anything, just him, and it's It's the thing of beauty. There's also a secondary mock-up cover on the back of the magazine, which is of Jodie Whittaker as the 13th Doctor, for those who were, apt to complain that there's not enough of the modern Doctor in there, blah, blah, blah. So they gave them that. This issue is just chock full of Russell T Davies goodness. You got Christopher Eccleston. You got a ton of info on the Time Lord Victoria storyline. Great visuals with David Tennant, Paul McGann, Christopher Eccleston. I mean, just awesome. There's like 10 different articles in this about Time Lord Victorious, about Age of Extinction, or Echoes of Extinction, about all the audios that Paul McGann has done on his own for Time Lord Victorious, Dalek Universe that David Tennant has just come out with. And oh my god, if you don't see that trailer, holy shit! That trailer is fucking phenomenal. David Tennant, you are a god. I can't wait till that comes out. That is slated to come out in 2021, sometime around the same time that the Ninth Doctor Adventures with Christopher Eccleston comes out. So, wow. Talk about the content. And we're going to be reviewing that trailer. Yes, we will. Soon. There's information about, there's some articles about the Time Fracture live event, which is also slated to come out, I think, spring-ish, February, March-ish of next year, provided no other COVID or no other beep boop issues occur. In which I think fans who participate in the UK will actually be able to meet one of the doctors. I'm not saying that I don't think that they're going to have one of the actors on site, but I think they might have someone dressed up as one of the doctors to integrate into the story. So at this point, what you should have, if you've been following the Time Lord Victorious storyline, we have the Dalek Awakens, which is kind of just a little blurb. And then you have was supposed to be an interactive escape room Dalek thing, but that was last year, never quite got off the ground because of beep boop. So, but yeah, it was basically the Daleks figuring out that the Doctor was somehow wrong, like somehow very, very bad, and then they had to do something to stop him from doing whatever he had done. Then the first thing we have was Titan Comics #1, which just came out earlier this month, which is the adventure between the 10th Doctor and the Daleks who've never heard of the Time War. And you have the Doctor Who Annual, which is based around the 13th Doctor, but the information in that guide is basically a guide to the Dark Times, because this Time Lord Victorious, this whole arc is pretty much based around the Dark Times, which is an era of Doctor Who history and Gallifreyan history that was before the Time Lords came to be the Time Lords, like before they had established themselves as this power. They were just a regular race like any other. They were a bit more warlike, more interventionist, and if they saw something they didn't like, they were going to take care of it. So this was when we had a lot of the big interstellar wars between the great vampires, the Rachnos, all of those peoples. They were either exiled or destroyed by the Time Lords because they were evil. And one of those races was the Keturah. But it was something that even the Time Lords weren't sure even existed. It was more like a bedtime, like a nightmarish bedtime story to scare the children. And apparently this Katura this race was so evil that it even frightens the Daleks, because according to the annual, the Katura believed that they held dominion over life and death. Like, they would decide when you would live and when you would die. And from what I can tell, the stories coming out in the Time Lord Victorious storyline have quite a bit to do with the Doctor fighting against the Katura, like literally fighting death itself. When the two books come out, the All Flesh is Grass, and I forget what the other one's called, but those two books are dealing with 10 making a very, very big mistake, and the 9th and 8th Doctor having to come in and fix his shit, because the 10th Doctor is completely fucked up. I'm not saying he's gone completely down the Time Lord Victorious rabbit hole, but he's not quite thinking in his right mind. And he has decided to do something that would have great consequences, not only for the future, but also the past. So, yes, the Time Lord Victorious timeline, there's actually a double page insert in this latest issue of Doctor Who magazine that completely lays out what each Doctor's role is in this overarching story. So it explains it a little bit better, like, why was this Doctor here at this point in time, and why was he doing this? I'm actually going to put up a little graphic here so you guys can see that double page. Yep. Again, if you do not live in the UK and are unable to have a physical subscription to Doctor Who magazine, like me, please, please, please visit pocketmags.com. The link I will put in the description. pocketmags.com/US/Doctor-Who-magazine. You can either get a complete 12-issue subscription for a full year at an actually very decent price, or you can just purchase them issue by issue if you so choose, if you don't want to have a whole year's worth. I know that the Doctor Who magazine, I mean, it's very hit and miss as to whether their issues are decent, but when they have good issues, they have good issues. And if you want to keep up with the Time Lord Victorious storyline, you know, it might be important, because this comic book, Monstrous Beauty, that's in this issue, that's only part 1. There's going to be part 2, which comes out in next month's issue to finish that part of the storyline. So if you want to keep up, it might be a good idea, just saying. So now we will be moving on to this thing of beauty. Monstrous Beauty. This is Christopher Eccleston's, or the 9th Doctor's, introduction, I guess, into the Time Lord Victorious storyline. All we knew going into this was that it had to do with the Doctor, Rose, the Dark Times, and vampires. Oh my. That was pretty much what we got as far as details beforehand. We do know that the great vampires are a race that existed during the Dark Times. They were completely evil, for obvious reasons, and they bled races dry, basically. And that the Time Lords destroyed them in the Dark Times. So what we know is that somehow the Doctor and Rose are transported back to the Dark Times. Way back, way back, when Gallifrey was still young. And Time Lords weren't necessarily Time Lords yet. Their ability to travel in time was rudimentary at best. So basically, they get there. They're not sure where they are at first. It looks very beautiful from the outset, but the Doctor, immediately when he gets there, he senses that something is not right. But he can't put his finger on it. So as they're attempting to explore, they get picked up by a cruiser that comes by, assuming that they're some sort of alien threat. and that they need to be grabbed. Whoever these people are that pick them up are very, I don't want to say warlike, but very xenophobic. Like they, or at least the woman that in charge that picked them up is. She's immediately distrustful of them because they don't, you know, she doesn't know what they are. Now, before I go any further into this, I need to give you a little bit of context. You need to understand just one very important thing. At this point in time, I don't believe that the Gallifreyans have achieved time travel. They might have been able to travel in space and go to other planets, but I don't think that they have gone to, I don't think they've gone that far, and they definitely haven't achieved time travel yet. Because humans don't exist yet. Or at least they haven't gone to Earth. And remember, according to Rassilon, Gallifrey has over a billion years worth of history in and of itself. So the Earth, while it has been around for over a billion years, humans didn't come into being until much, much later. So at this point in universal history, humans don't exist yet. So Rose herself is an anomaly because she's literally becomes the first human that they've ever seen. The funny thing is they're not even initially able to identify the Doctor himself because his DNA is not quite like theirs. And I know what you're going to say. Oh, God, they're putting this timeless children bullshit in there. No. Remember, before the Gallifreyans achieved time travel ability, they were just Gallifreyans. They did not have the ability to regenerate. They did not, I mean, they were long-lived, yes, but they didn't live, they weren't immortal. It wasn't until their exposure to the time vortex, after they gained the ability to travel in time, that their bodies absorbed so much radiation from the vortex that it gave them the ability to regenerate. Hence the two hearts. So his DNA is fundamentally a little bit different than a regular Gallifreyans, at least from the Dark Times, because he's been exposed to the vortex. They have not. Just a little bit of context there so you don't get confused. So she takes them to her, I guess you'd call it, station, straight to the med bay because they need to be examined. She needs to know exactly who they are, what they are, and if they're a threat. The older gentleman medical person that's there seems to be a much more reasonable person. He doesn't agree with her, warlike ways and her xenophobic ideals, and he's just trying to get her to this isn't right the way that you're treating them. But she's portrayed as so xenophobic and so angry and so warlike, I guess, that she really didn't care. And what shocks him even more is after they're tested and she comes to realize that this one is human and humans aren't supposed to exist yet. And this one and the Doctor is an anomaly. Can't quite tell what he is. The Doctor, not the Doctor, but the medical person that's testing him, when he speaks to her, and when her name is called over the intercom to get her attention because there's an outside threat that's attacking, she's referred to as Rassilon. And I gotta tell you, the look on the Doctor's face when that name is said is priceless. I'm sorry, what? like he can't even believe it. And funny thing is that the TARDIS is translating whatever language that Rassilon and her people are speaking, which you would assume is Gallifreyan, yes? Now, the reason why the Doctor uses English is because, he comes from a time where humans do exist. So they've kind of incorporated that language into their knowledge set. But in Rassilon's time, millions of years ago, during the Dark Times, there weren't any humans. Which means Rassilon and her people would not be speaking English. They would be speaking Gallifreyan. But it's a well-known fact, a well-known established fact, that the only language that the TARDIS will not translate is Gallifreyan. Unless it's a really, really old language that the TARDIS has no knowledge of, like in Satan Pit, which is unusual at best. So if she is speaking Gallifreyan, even if it's an ancient version of Gallifreyan, somehow the TARDIS is translating it and Rose can understand it? Just food for thought there. Anyhow, as soon as her name is said and he hears it, he realizes where he is and when. That this is millions of years ago in his timeline. Well, not his personal timeline, but in the timeline of his people. It's the Dark Times, before Gallifrey was destroyed. And the people that they're talking to are ancient Gallifreyans. Not Time Lords, but ancient Gallifreyans. Because Time Lords don't exist yet. Like, the Citadel as we see it, now as it's built, doesn't exist yet. They haven't, the technology that they amassed later on, they haven't gotten that far yet. But considering how Rassilon is portrayed, I don't think it would be too long before they do. And this is right smack dab in the middle of the Great Vampire War. Because once they manage to escape the room that they're in and they get outside, they see the vampires in the sky. And he doesn't call them vampires by name, but I mean, that's what they do. And, the fact that they have to subsist on blood, and that's what they draw from people as a life force to survive. I mean, that's basically what they are. And they're trying to escape, and the doctor manages to escape, but Rose gets captured by the vampires because she is a very succulent morsel for them. She is something they've never seen before. They have sucked hundreds of planets dry, different races, aliens all over, but they've never seen a human because up to now, humans don't exist. She is the first because she's traveled back in time. So they're like, ooh, tasty, human, morsel, yummy, dinner. At first, she's not entirely sure what they want from her. She's in what looks like to be a medieval Victorian type castle. And a servant girl is brought to her to give her something, a gown to wear. And if you remember the Time Lord Victorious poster where she's wearing that white gown, that's what she was given. So they're taking that straight out of the Monstrous Beauty comic. She at first thinks she's being taken to dinner, like to eat dinner, but she doesn't realize that she is dinner. The three vampire sisters who are like the rulers of the vampire race, the great vampires, they want to eat her. They want to slurp her dry for dinner. And when the doctor realizes this, I mean, the comic book, this issue ends with the three of them attacking her. So, will she be turned into a vampire? I don't know. Is the doctor going to be able to save her? I think we know that he probably will, because otherwise she wouldn't have gone on further adventures. But if you want to continue reading Monstrous Beauty, you're going to have to either get the comic book or find someone that has scanned the pages and uploaded them online. That is issue 1. As I said, issue 2 comes out next month, and it'll be the ending of this particular story. We will also have Titan Comics Time Lord Victorious issue number 2, which will be the end of the 10th Doctor Paradox story that was introduced at the beginning of this month. And then, if I remember correctly, we should be getting some audios. I believe it's going to be the 8th Doctor audios, along with the 2 different audios for the Master, the Delgado Master, and the Ainley master, which will quickly be followed up by the 2 books, and then Echoes of Extinction, which is the 8th Doctor and 10th Doctor, double audio, and then, of course, Time Fracture next year. Oh, Minds and Magnox as well, the Jacob Dudman read BBC book, which that will come out either, I think, December or January. December? Yes. But that all leads into Time Fracture at the very end, which should be sometime next year. First quarter, February, March-ish. So, yeah, the comic book is fantastic. I remember last week when I was discussing about Titan Comics, it was kind of, the storyline was good, but I just didn't like the coloring, and I didn't like the artwork, how the 10th Doctor looked. This particular comic had the colors and artwork and facial features down pat. I was really upset with how Titan Comics, I didn't feel that they had enough emotional reaction on the Doctor's face. It seemed like he was always just bland, and it was kind of driving me nuts. Whoever did the drawing and the coloring for this particular comic, fantastic. Eccleston's reaction, the way that he was drawn, spot on. The way they drew Rose, spot on. I mean, the darker colors matches the darker tone of the story, which is why I really do think that Titan Comics could have benefited from a bit more. Their color scheme could have been darker because the tone of the story was a bit darker. We're talking about Daleks. It shouldn't be pink and purple and blue. It should be a little more subdued. This comic book hit all cylinders on. It was wonderfully done, and I recommend it 100%. If you don't want to have to buy the issue, I know there are people out there that have probably scanned the pages online or will do at some point. Like I said, pocketmags.com does have it. You don't have to buy the entire subscription of the magazine. You can buy them issue by issue. If you don't want to have to deal with 12 months worth of Doctor Who magazine, you can just buy the 2 issues that have the comic book in it and be done with it. They are very, very good about it. I know that their price scale is in pounds, technically, because it's in the UK, but you should be able to convert it. It's really not that expensive. I think it's like £3.99 for an issue, which roughly translates to maybe, I don't know, $5 and something here. It's really not that much. So yeah, that is the review for Monstrous Beauty. Wow, this is the shortest video I've done in a long, long time. Well, anyway, don't forget, like I said, this coming week, if I can pry my computer away from my kids because of their schoolwork, I will be giving you a new review on Des. Before we go into that, though, I just want to remind everybody that that interview will not be glorifying Dennis Nielsen in any way, shape, or form. I'm only going to be talking about David Tennant's performance, the performance of the actors, and the story as a whole. I'm not trying to glorify Dennis Nielsen's actions or deeds. They were appalling and disgusting. And I wouldn't want anybody to think that I'm, trying to praise anything that he did. We will also be talking about the documentary that aired last Thursday that David Tennant narrated about Dennis Nielsen's life. And I thought it had some really interesting viewpoints about the reasons why Dennis Nielsen was able to act for as long as he did, because of the climate, the political climate and the social climate of what was going on in the UK at that time. So we're also going to be discussing that. All right, so look for that video next week, and also look for some tidbits about Around the World in 80 Days as they come. And yeah, that's about it, guys. So I will see you guys in the coming week with more information on Doctor Who as it comes, as well as more. Oh, yes. Also look for a video reviewing the trailer for Dalek universe. That is definitely happening. All right, guys. I will see y'all next week when I have the opportunity. It will probably be closer to the end of the week than the beginning. Like I said, kids got to do schoolwork first. So I will see you guys when I see you. Peace out.